Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Dual Screens Crossplay Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Stephen Fontana, and with me, it is a 1v1. He's over there, he's below me, actually, if you're watching the video version of the podcast. He is Andy Asimakis. How are you, Andy?
I'm good. My mouth has been ravaged by dentists.
Several dentists.
Prodded by two of them. And, yeah, I hate those things with a passion. I'm not going to get into it for the fourth time this evening, but I'm glad it's over. No major issues. The thumb is healing quite nicely.
Oh, good.
Though I unwrapped it for the first full time recently, and I have it's a legit potato peeler scar on my thumb. It is like a perfect cut.
Isn't the first time you change your bandage the most nerve-wracking? Like, I don't want to see it. I don't want to rip it open. I don't want to look at it.
Yeah. It's like, how dumb am I? How dumb was I in that one moment in my life? It's like, it's the reminder is always in my face. And it's like, I slowly peeled it back. I was like, all right, just see what's under there. You got to put the little gel on. I'm like, so okay, it's kind of cute.
When you got your stitches, I'm assuming you got it.
No stitches. No stitches.
Would they do glue? What'd they do?
These have some weird like surgical gauze that dissolves into your skin.
Okay.
Right.
Sure. When you said gauze last week, I thought maybe it was like they did something and then put the gauze on top.
It's like some weird like brownish, funky.
Sure.
It looked like styrofoam, thin styrofoam. It looked like.
Okay. So when I was younger, my dad. It was in the summer, and we used to have this giant glass iced tea jar, and it had a nozzle on the bottom, and you had to pop the thing, and you put your glass under, push the nozzles, fill up your glass of iced tea. And when you got to the bottom, like when you got past the nozzle, there was like maybe an inch and a half of tea left, which is like maybe 2 full glasses of iced tea. So I remember we filled up the whole thing, and I forget why, but like I think there was like an ice cube or like maybe a piece of lemon or something stuck in the nozzle. So he went to pour it from the top. So he picked it up, but it was condensating, and it slipped just maybe 2 inches. It slipped off the table and fell down, and then it cracked in his hands. But his instinct was to catch it when it fell. Sure,
because that's what we all do when something falls off.
So it shattered, and he and of course he went to catch it. So he cut the meaty part of his thumb. And I remember just seeing just so much blood, and because it's like right there in the puffy part, which is where there's like a little artery there, and I don't think he got the artery, but I mean for whatever. But this is when I realized my dad is
they're very vascular. Your fingers, that's why they bleed so much. I learned that.
Oh yeah. This is when I realized my dad is a special breed of human being. Like I always knew he was a little bit tougher than like most people, like most humans that I grew up around. But so he does the thing, and he holds it, he goes to the sink, he washes his hands, the rest of his body, which had blood all over it, and then he looks at it and it's still bleeding. He goes, okay. He's like, let's go to the ER. So I went with him. I don't remember if I was too young to be home alone, but my brother was old enough to drive us, so I don't really know what the deal was. I don't know why I went with him.
Sure.
I don't know why I went with him, because if my brother was old enough to drive, then I was at least 10. So, but whatever. We went together, and he was holding his bloody hand, and they're like, "All right, come in. We'll do it right away, whatever." And I remember watching him, and they put his hand on the table, and I guess it stopped bleeding at this point, or it wasn't bleeding a lot at this point, and I just watched them take this like 4-inch needle, and they just jab him in his hand, and he's just looking at him like, oh, just having a conversation. And they're like, no, and they're sewing him up, and he's just standing there having a conversation, and he had these stitches going, like it looked like a little caterpillar going across his thumb, and he didn't even flinch. And I was like, this man has cut himself and hurt himself way too much in his life. Like I've never had like that kind of like adversity in my life. He's just used to it. He's like Tim the Toolman Taylor. He was just hurting himself all the time, and he's just used to it.
We're a different breed of man, our dads. That's how it is.
If they wanted anything done, they had to do it themselves.
You know, they'd walk in the snow with no shoes to go to school. That's what I heard either way.
Yes, of course. My grandfather grew up with 7 siblings in a 1-bedroom apartment. I've heard it all. Heard it all.
Right.
Folks, for those of you who don't know, this is the Dual Screens Crossplay Podcast, the internet's #1 gaming news podcast starring people you've never heard of, probably. The show posts each and every week for your listening pleasure on your podcast service of choice and records live on twitch.tv/dualscreens streams, and the video on demand posts later on youtube.com/dualscreens TV. If you are watching on Twitch, consider giving us a follow. And if you're watching on YouTube, please consider giving us a subscription. We have just crossed the 400 subs threshold over there on YouTube. So thank you so much for all of your support there. We have really, really interesting videos coming out before the end of the year. We have 2 really cool list videos that are going to be coming out at the end of the year. We have, of course, we put all of our podcasts up there as well. So there's a lot of content for you guys to digest. Now, Andy, we also had our Dual Screens podcast go up on Friday. Do you want to tell everybody about this past show and the show we have coming up for them this week?
Yeah, so we spoke to Ian of 1047 Games talking about Splitgate. That was a very fun conversation. It was. It really was. Those always get better and better, I feel. I don't know what it is about us. We do great shows. Sometimes we hit it out of the park. Sometimes we hit the park out of us. We spoke about that show last week, so we're not going to go too far into it. But why don't you tell the listeners who you had the pleasure of sitting down with? Because this was awesome. And unfortunately, I had that whole hospital thing with the wife, so I wasn't able to record. Yeah, this is coming out on this coming Friday.
Yes.
Yes, I spoke to Grigor Ebert. Now he pronounced his last name, but whatever. I'm sorry, Grigor. Of Head Up Games. He's a marketing, he's PR manager for that publisher. And it was a very wild conversation.
Yeah. It was great. I listened to the whole I listened to the whole episode. He really shit on CD Projekt, which was nice.
Fun. It was fun. Hearing like what that world is like for someone in the PR space. Like if you were in that position, if you work for CDPR now, would you be slitting your wrists on a daily basis? So very great conversation.
I'm pretty sure his quote was, "I would have quit."
Yeah, I would have quit. Yeah. Don't give it all away.
But that's the quote. That's the quote for the show.
That's the quote for all the Reddits and the N4Gs.
Exactly. Folks, if you want to support our quest on bringing you indie developer and developer interviews and artist interviews and all of that stuff, if you want to support us in any way that you can, please go over to patreon.com/NDS podcast. You could support us for as little as $1, or you could become our latest Patreon producer and join our Patreon producers, Colton the Apprentice Nestler and FNH Paul. We cannot continue to grow without all of your support, and we do appreciate it. I already made changes. I didn't tell anybody, but I made changes. I got rid of one of the tiers. I got rid of it. It's gone.
Of course. I have no idea.
The $25 one is gone. I just don't even want to look at it. We have too much shit that we have to do. We had to scale back, but you could go on there and you could support us in any way you want.
You can still give us the money. We just won't do the work.
We're not going to do any work. It's not going to happen. We have 4 shows to give you before the end of December, so we'll see what happens. Yeah. We'll see what happens. It's been every single time I was like, hey, maybe tonight's the night I'm going to ask the boys if they or Andy or Taylor or whatever if they can record. And every one of those nights I was going to the hospital. I went to the hospital Thursday, Sunday, then Thursday, then Sunday, and then Monday this week.
That's a lot of hospital.
Too many hospital or Tuesday. What Tuesday? It wasn't Monday. It was yesterday.
I don't like it.
Anyway, too much. So. Ladies and gentlemen, we have major news, Andy.
We do. Yes,
major news. As you know, our next segment on the show is the Adventures in Gaming. And ladies and gentlemen, the t-shirt has finally been made. It is here.
It's bittersweet.
It is an incredible feat.
It's no longer your favorite future t-shirt.
No.
It's not your favorite now t-shirt.
That's right. All you have to do now to own this t-shirt is go to dualscreens.com/store. That'll bring you to our Teespring. Scroll down and get your Adventures in Gaming comfort tee in heather gray or soft black. And it is an awesome t-shirt, and I love it very, very much. And that, of course, was created by Mr. Nuff himself, and we thank you very much for that. But the Adventures in Gaming t-shirt, it's got a very Masters of the Universe feel to it.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Very retro.
I love it very much. So let's get into the Adventures in Gaming, and we each put a game on here that neither of the other one of us is playing, which is fine. But because we spoke about mine last week, and I just have more information this week, let's start with you, Andy.
So the thumb is healing nicely, and what better game to play that only requires one button press? And that is a game that came out today, as of this recording, and that's Super Meat Boy Forever.
Ever.
So yeah, since we're diligent podcasters, I interviewed Emmerich Thoma from Game Bakers last night for next week's show, because that's how good we are about shows on this network, and we discussed the idea of a video game sequel, how they're really hard to get right sometimes, how it's easy to take, if it works really well the first time, to just bank on that success, make a carbon copy, improve some things, but you're not really innovating with what the game did
right
in its sequel. Now this game, when we first saw it last year at PAX East, I was a little bit about it. It was very runner-esque kind of a thing. You couldn't control Meat Boy directly. It was like an endless runner kind of situation going on. You could jump, you could slide, you could punch. But I spent some real time with it today, like a good hour or two, and it is really good. Now, the soundtrack is lacking a little bit. Nothing is really saying this is a great soundtrack like in the first game. Like, I think Chad's Lullaby and some other choice songs in that game are really fucking good. This one's like, okay, all right, maybe a different guy did it. I understand. But the gameplay is really fucking good. And the level design is brilliant. Like,
yeah,
there's checkpoints, which make things a little bit easier along the way. It's not as brutal as it once was, but there's actual boss fights with a little energy meter, and you have to like punch them and attack them, which is a really weird concept for a Meat Boy game.
Right. It seems like, you know, because it's a runner, a lot of people go into it with that negativity instantly, and don't really give the fact that, like, the thing about Meat Boy, it was basically a runner, but like, okay, I'm gonna take you on a journey here, but bear with me.
I think I know where you're going.
It was a game that you die, repeat. It was constantly just kind of go over and over and over and over again. And they kind of just took that concept, and instead of making it single screen or slightly vertical, they just stretched it over a canvas of miles and miles and miles, where you're just kind of just going with the flow, and you kind of get into this, like, Super Mario Run is not a bad Mario game. It's a simple, you could play with one finger. It's to get really good at it, you have to be really good. Like, there's a lot of secrets and ways to, you know, reach paths that you didn't see before. But it looks like with Meat Boy, they took the stuff you fell in love with from a character standpoint, from what Meat Boy is, what that universe is, and the charm and the absurdity of it, and they they brought it with it, which I think really helps give credence to this as a sequel, as opposed to it just being a change of genre just to change the genre or something like that.
You know, initially I was like, okay, you just reskinned a runner game with Meat Boy assets. That's like the first glance of it.
Right.
But then when you play it, it's like, when you realize Meat Boy, when you play the original Meat Boy, if you just have the balls to always hold forward and then jump when you need to, it's all about speed, those games. Speed and accuracy.
Right.
Now it's like, well, we'll just hold forward for you. Just jump when you need to.
Right. Yeah.
And it works really, really well. And I encourage everyone to go ahead and buy it, like, as soon as possible, because announcement time, interview in the new year with Meat Boy.
That's right.
Very excited about that.
We're very excited. Please be excited about this. This should be good. All right. So Andy, I want to talk about Cyberpunk. I don't want to talk about Cyberpunk in the news.
No. Give me your thoughts as someone who's been playing.
So I played a bit more.
Yes, yes, yes.
I haven't played a ton because of the frustrations that I've had with the game. First, I want to get the technical stuff out of the way. The stuff that I've come across that I really think they need to fix and address as soon as possible. And the most blatant one is the crashes. I am playing on the PS4 version on a PS5, and I have to tell you, the game runs great. It doesn't look as good as PC, but it runs really well. I never have frame drops. I never have any weird texture pops or anything like that. I don't have any of those N64 graphics happening. None of that happens. What does happen is the strangest crashes. I had a crash when I was actually playing during my stream, and I had the game up, and I was in my car, I think, or I was just standing still, and then I was looking at chat. I talked to chat. I came back, and I couldn't move, and then the game crashed. It's like, okay. I wasn't doing anything. We weren't loading anything. I wasn't in intense action. I wasn't doing. Right. I was literally doing nothing. I was just standing in a spot checking chat. The second time it crashed that same night was after I was done streaming. I want to play a little bit after stream, and it was mid cutscene. It was an actual like a conversation, whatever. I'm not controlling anything. I'm not moving anywhere. Things are happening, and then it went crashed, took me out to my menu. I was like, okay.
I think the apex is when I don't know if you saw Greg Miller's tweet.
Yes,
that the game crashed during the end credits.
Yes, and that's the thing that's weird.
It just can't let you go.
Yeah,
it's like you've reached the end. You survived the game's many bugs and issues, and nope, at the very end, we're gonna give you one last one.
Here's what I think this is. I think this is a game that would be on the list of games that are not backwards compatible because of these types of issues. I think it's just a simple backwards compatibility thing for my issues because of how weird they're happening. It's not happening at a time where the game is overloaded. The PlayStation's fan never kicks into overdrive,
Right.
So I just think it's a situation where the game is just not optimized for it. Now to get into weird glitches that are part of video games, like these are the things that would happen in Fallout that we would just laugh at and go, like Skyrim, where if the guy's sword is backwards. There was one that broke the game for me where I couldn't do anything, and that was I'm counting as a crash because I had to hard reset the game, and I could not swap weapons. You pressed, I think it's triangle to swap your weapons, and it would do an animation, but nothing would happen, and the hands would just stand there like this, and it would just keep going like that, and there would be no weapon. I couldn't shoot a weapon. I couldn't aim down sights. I couldn't do it. I have a handgun, a sword, and a shotgun, and I couldn't. And it would get stuck in shotgun pose, so like the hands were stuck like they were holding a shotgun, and it would just keep doing this. Anyway, so that one was like, okay, well, it's not letting me reload. It was letting me do nothing combat wise. So I had to restart the game. The funniest one to me, and was just baffling. I'm out in the street. I have to go. I think it was like 1,800 meters or whatever it is away for a mission. It was the furthest mission I've had so far. And I call the car, and I look around. There's no car. Like, what is going on? Where's the car? It's like you calling a horse. It's like calling roach, right?
Right.
So I do it again. And then I hear, whoosh, like, what the fuck was that? I turn around. There's my car in the road, upside down. Completely upside down. I'm like, okay. So I walk up to the car. It was probably about 20 meters away. So I run over to the car. I'm trying to see if maybe I can interact with it to like flip it over or like whatever. I crouch. I go to the driver's side. I'm hitting, I think it's square. Nothing's happening. Car explodes. Sends me flying backwards. Within an inch of dying. Within like not like a sliver. Wow. So I take my thing. I'm like, whatever. And then the car disappears. I'm like, okay, it's because it was broken. So then I call it again. Car comes and it says, your insurance, replaced your car and then it took $1,200 out of my account.
That sounds about right for Cyberpunk.
And I was like,
to take your money and to fuck you over.
I was like, but why? Yeah. I didn't do anything. Like, I didn't even touch the car.
You in real life and it did to you virtually. That's what you get.
Okay, so that being said, those are like the weird things aside from like characters just clipping into stuff or like walking weird. Aside from that stuff, you know what, we're gonna do a reverse Oreo cookie. I'm gonna give you the sweet stuff in the middle. I think that this game's
give me that creamy stuff.
Writing is fantastic. I think every character that you interact with is beautifully written, mostly acted splendidly. Some of them are kind of shitty, but like it is what it is. It's like, again, it's just like Fallout. Like it's hit or miss with some of the actors. It's awesome. Like being in the world and seeing everything around you is awesome. It's unsettling. It's not my cup of tea. I don't like being in the world because seeing sex being like so overtly part of that world, it's like everything's trying to fuck everything. It's just weird like that. And that's like, I don't do romance stuff in games like that. Like, yeah, like I don't really pursue that kind of thing. So I'm playing female V, which I prefer way over the male VO. I think I'm on the minority of that, but I just feel like she's more human. And the like wanting to play more of it, like the main story, Andy, if you only do the main story, you will walk away very happy with this game. It is so well made and paced, and it blows your mind as you're playing it. You're like, they're doing what? Like it's really, really well done. Go ahead, say what you're gonna say.
Yeah, I think there was no doubt on that front that we would get a very well written, deep, engrossing story.
Right.
Because that's what they do so well. Is they tell really good stories.
Yeah.
And they build off of good stuff. But again, it's like it sucks that you have all of that. The creamy goodness has like this outer layer of just crud.
Right.
That's in your way to get to the good stuff.
Yeah, like if I put blinders on and I just ignore all the bullshit and just be like, whatever, it's a game, it'll get patched out, I could really enjoy it. There are other things that take me completely out of the game or make me scratch my head, and it's what makes me believe this game needed at least a year. There are so many things that are just not gelling. They're not cohesive. And one of the starkest things, the game gets really, really, like, picks up steam. I love the beginning of the game. I thought how they get you in as a corpo is super intense. Really, really cool. Like, it reminds me of like a spy novel. Like, just really cool stuff. And when you finally get to Johnny Silverhand and you start all that stuff, which is brilliantly done, just brilliant. You have this relationship. You start in this relationship where V and Johnny are they're always butting heads because they don't know each other. They're strangers, and it's weird, and they don't trust each other. But they kind of need each other, you know? But they do not trust each other. If you deviate from the story path and do side stuff, which the game is obviously encouraging you to do because side shit is everywhere, the tone shifts completely between their relationship. It'll be like your dialogue options with him will be like, "What, I don't trust you," whatever, and you're in a fight almost, like you're arguing with each other, and then that scene will be over, and I'll be like, "I want to start this side mission," and not all of them have him involved at all, but some of them you get surprised where he'll just show up and he'll talk to you about this dumb side quest that, like, I don't want to give anything away, but like just simple side quests, like a fetch quest. He'll just show up and start talking to you, but he'll talk to you like your best buds. Like none of the relationship that you have has happened, you know? And it's a weird disconnect that I feel like I feel like it was either it was a poor design choice or it was a necessity because of time, where it was,
just to get it. Like,
we want him in this game. We want Johnny Silverhand to be a part of this. This is how we're going to do it. Oh yeah, but what if they it doesn't matter. Just we need to get this mission done.
Keanu's lines done, recorded, and then send him on his way.
Yeah, I mean that I do honestly feel like that was part of it. Like they were like, okay, we can't have him do this scene 4 different ways, depending on what class you chose or where you're at.
They never first saw him being a huge like star attached to the game. Like I think
that was something they said, right? They said that it was just supposed to be like a
quick cameo, maybe.
Yeah. I thought they said that. I could be making it up,
when he became like the face of the game, it was like, well, now you're in it for more than just that, so throw some money at you.
I mean, he's a massive part of the story. Like he's like basically the MacGuffin of the whole story. So I feel like I don't think that was a last minute decision, but his involvement maybe in the side quests and like all that little incidental stuff might have been, because even though it doesn't match tonally with what you're doing, it's still highly entertaining from like a gamer standpoint. But the main issue that I have with it is two. The first one is that when I said last week that V has a history and you're not going into this world blind, you're not going into the world not knowing the world, you have a purpose in the world. That to me takes me way out of the experience from a role-playing perspective, because I want to play V a very specific way, but her personality is already there. So it's very difficult for me to get that role-playing experience out of it.
Right.
And that's just that's my preference. I don't think it's a bad design choice. I don't, because Geralt was like that. But the difference was
you're not building him up though. There's no
right. Like, he's established.
Right.
He's established, but he has different ways he could go about a situation, and that's the role play with him. Right. With him, it's like I could not give a shit, or I could show compassion, and they both work. Whereas V is a certain way, and her compassion doesn't make sense in some scenarios because she's never had compassion or for this specific thing leading up to it. It's just tonally, it just doesn't match for me.
Right, where it's like V, I would imagine you would think is like a vector for the player, you in this scenario.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, well, that's not how I would approach that. That's how my V would do that. But this world's V, this established V, is doing things that seem out of place with how my vision of her should be.
Right.
With her build, her background, the things I've tried to customize.
Well, I'm glad you went to the whole build thing, because that's my other issue, is that I'm a sucker for role-playing skill trees and all that stuff. And they have
freaking nerd.
They have 5 ability scores, right? And it seems like, for the most part, if you want to be stealthy, you also have to have hacking. But they're not, but hacking is not stealth, and it's cool. Cool, COOL, is your sneaking ability, and it is your basically your charisma in conversations. It opens up special dialogue options.
Sure, makes sense.
That those dialogue options don't really do much, but for some reason stealth is tied to that. However, most stealth situations that I've gotten into, you absolutely, 100% need hacking, because you can't stealth around the camera. The camera's going to see you. You have to figure out a way to shut it off or whatever, short circuit it, whatever you need to do to get around that part. Or you'll be in a part where that has 12 enemies and 6 of them are automated robots that, or whatever, some sort of droids that you, if you had the hacking, you can make one turn on the other guys, start a problem or whatever. You can use televisions to distract them, and then there's eventually you get instant hacking, which I didn't get, but I've done some research because I was trying to figure out what build I wanted to do. And so if you are leveling up and I want my character to be, I want her primary weapons to be a pistol and a katana. That's how I'm building her. I'm building her like a Kill Bill situation. Right. Or like, exactly. I just like that she's an ex-corporate. She was, I don't want to give away spoilers, but like she had some shit she went through. She's on a path of rebellion and redemption, kind of, and I want her to just slice people up.
Yeah, it's style and substance at the same time.
So for that, you need agility, because I want to be able to dodge attacks more frequently, and you need body, which gives her strength and hit points and all that stuff for that hand-to-hand combat. So if I'm pouring my points into that, I have to ignore cool or hacking. Oh. So not ignore like completely, but they're going to suffer.
Right. You can't put as much into them as you would want to.
Right. So unless you're just grinding and just beating up bad guys in the street for XP,
sure,
you are going to be behind in one of those categories, so that when you get up to a part where they want you to sneak around or they encourage it, you more often than not, my character ends up just standing in the middle and going, bring it on, and let's just fight everybody at once. And the game's hard. The combat's not easy. The shooting is not great. It's not like a first-person shooter. It's more in line with like Mass Effect 2 for me. That's what it kind of feels like, the shooting, except in the first person. But you know, it's generous with its health drops. It's generous with its loot. I'm starting to craft a little bit now, which you can wholly ignore. You don't even have to do any of that stuff.
Don't craft too much though. You may corrupt your save file.
Well, yeah, there was that news too. The only other thing is a lot of the great aspects of the character development or the character skill progression, whatever, is the augments that you get. And it kind of makes it's the same problem I had with Fallout with the power armor. Like, my characters that I would have are sneaky, right? But you would get these big giant things of power armor, which are awesome, but I don't want to use them.
Yeah, it doesn't work well with...
They don't work with how I want to play that game.
No.
So I never use them. I just have them hanging up on my wall.
Right.
But
for the aesthetic.
I have them, and I feel the same way with some of these augments. Like, I don't want her to have a million robot parts. Like, that's not my vision of V. My vision of V is to keep her humanity and have a couple of enhancements.
Yeah, less Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah,
more human.
But that's my gameplay. That's my issues with it.
Okay.
That's what it is.
Right. Listen, I've heard so many good things about it from a narrative perspective, and I'm just glad that I'm playing the long game with this one, because again, I feel like I'm missing out on the glitches for the humor part of it. But
yeah,
you know, YouTube compilation videos, that's enough for me.
They'll be there.
I can get by it.
Exactly. All right, Andy, let's bring us into the indie news update. What do you got for us?
Ooh, one of our favorite publishers, Chucklefish.
We love Chucklefish.
A huge update, just like road mapping things into next year. Updates for Eastward, which looks like it's been delayed until sometime next year. They don't do crunch, so they've delayed it. So yay for that. Updates for Starmancer. There's a sale going on right now for War Group. So head over to chucklefish.org/blog/year-end development updates, and you'll find
Wargroove is dope.
A bunch of stuff from them on all their games. And yeah, one of the best publishers, I feel, Chucklefish. Great games, always solid.
Yeah, they do good stuff there.
But yeah, I'm very excited about that Eastward game. But you know, I could wait a little longer. Just make sure it's not buggy.
Indeed. Yeah. All right, we're going to get into the dual screens report here. We have 5 items on the list here. And the first thing I want to mention was a tweet from IGN's account, or it was like one of their little updates there. It was a tweet, I think. They tweeted out 2020 video game revenue is expected to hit $179.7 billion globally. Theoretically, more than what movies and sports are projected to make combined, with lower profits due to COVID-19 pandemic. We've mentioned about how the video game industry was kind of tailored to survive and thrive in this environment.
Yeah, of all things, yeah.
Yeah.
It was made for this.
They were always bigger than movies and music, but to throw sports in there.
Sports took a shellacking this year.
Yeah.
Like, big time.
Yeah.
Like, even when they came back, people were just like...
Except the NBA.
Nah. Right.
For some reason, the NBA did great.
Right. People were like, nah, I'm kind of over this stuff. But it's really funny how we have that much in revenue globally, and we can't pay people more than $600 for COVID relief. Where's all our tax money going? There's so many games being purchased, Congress.
We need more game stuff. But speaking of money, I'm going to go down to my last story because these kind of go hand in hand.
They do. They really do.
So this came from Twisted Voxel, which I don't know where they're.
I see them more often lately. Yeah. They've been getting some good stuff.
So the headline here is God of War generated $500 million in revenue for Sony. Horizon Zero Dawn hit $400 million. Sony had an incredible sales success with their first-party IPs this generation, with Ghosts of Tsushima, God of War, Uncharted, and more. There were a couple of misfires early with Order 1886 or Killzone Shadowfall, but they quickly stabilized. God of War is a franchise that was brought back with PS4, but with a complete overhaul of the core game. Yes, we know that. The game sold more than 3 million copies in 3 days of its launch, becoming the fastest-selling game for Sony worldwide. The record was broken a few months later by Marvel's Spider-Man. As how much revenue Sony managed to earn from God of War, a quick glimpse at a LinkedIn profile by TJ Konsuji, group marketing manager at PlayStation, reveals the game grossed more than $500 million in revenue as of 2019. The game sold more than 10 million copies in its launch year, and digital sales made up of 40% of the figure, which means more profit for their pocket. The same person listed a revenue sales for Horizon Zero Dawn as well. As a new IP, it was also massively successful for Sony and managed to sell more than 8 million copies, with 35% of the sales for digital versus retail, and it grossed more than $400 million in revenue for Sony. Now, here's the crazy one. Naughty Dog is one of the most profitable studios for Sony. Their two franchises, The Last of Us and Uncharted, have grossed more than $1 billion in revenue. The same could be said for Ghost of Tsushima, which was a massive success for Sony, even outselling Horizon Zero Dawn as the fastest-selling new IP in the generation.
Wow. That is just... Yeah, I love how that is now a franchise. Like, we're going to get a guaranteed part 2 of Ghost.
I sure hope so.
In our lifetime. It's going to happen. It's too big to ignore at this point. Because Japan especially loved that game. I think it was like one of their game of the year in Famitsu, which for a Western dev to get that accolade is like,
that's awesome.
Holy shit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good game. And you know, I would like for them to expand on their open world design choices, because they were focused. They were very focused, but very narrow.
Yeah, now it's time. Listen, they played it a little bit too safe, I feel, with a lot of the game's core gameplay. We've got a new generation upon us now. You got some time, some money in the bank. Go crazy with it. Get funky. I want to see it.
Oh my God, that's the funky shit. All right, Andy, hit us up with some news here.
You know, I really feel that CDPR is just now, they're that Eric Andre meme. It's like upper management, our reputation, and they just shoot it down and they say, why did you kill our reputation? This is not involving Cyberpunk whatsoever, but a little horror game that came out many moons ago, Devotion, by a Taiwanese game developer. One of my favorite horror games, actually, was pulled from Steam due to a reference to the leader of China, Xi Jinping, referring to him as Winnie the Pooh.
I remember this. Yes. Okay.
Right. A while back, it was pulled from Steam.
Yeah.
Then it seemed that GOG would come to the rescue and release the game on their platform after it was like deplatformed for years. And again, such a good horror game. Like, if you love horror, you have to play this game. And it was, I think, the day it was supposed to be released. And GOG said on Twitter, after receiving many messages from gamers, we have decided not to list the game in our store.
It's so weird.
I don't know any gamers who are pro censorship in this regard.
Yeah, that's got to be
any who care about the Chinese Communist Party's feelings when it comes to what's in the
That's
game.
An email writing, what do you call it? campaign. That's what that is.
Right. This is legit China saying, no, GOG, no, take it down. We don't want it there. Take it. No,
you want to sell any games here? You're going to get rid of this one.
You will not put that on your store. We forbid it. And it's a good lesson in what fascism really looks like, kids. And I feel really bad for Red Candle Games. They were just heartbroken on Twitter. They were like, and they apologized so much. And it's a shame that it's a game that I own through not so legal ways.
Sure.
And because it was pulled from Steam. So I was looking forward to buying and owning a legitimate copy of it. And now I can't purchase it. And it just sucks that.
Do they not have it on their own website?
It's a weird thing with that you can't get it from them.
Weird.
You just can't. It's about I'm not sure what the details are with regard to that, but it was a big get for them to get them to publish this on their platform.
Right.
And it's
very weird.
It's another weird mark on CDPR's record for the week. It's like they've gone through so much shit with Cyberpunk, and now this. Ugh, it just sucks. I feel heartbroken because it's a good game.
Well,
and if you want to email me, I will get you a copy.
The rumor mill, Andy, has started churning.
Oh, it's always churning
for another horror franchise.
Oh yeah, a lot of horror this week. I'm noticing in the list.
A lot of spooky stuff happening.
Yeah. Okay, I'm into it. I'm very much into it.
So Capcom, the fruits of the Capcom ransomware attack continues.
Yeah.
This one comes from Gamer. There's a rumor going around that Resident Evil Switch game will feature Rebecca Chambers. According to recent rumors, a new Resident Evil game coming in late 2021 could very well star Rebecca Chambers as the playable character. Last month, Capcom was targeted in a ransomware attack that saw many of its future projects leaked online. This including something called Resident Evil Outrage, which will supposedly launch at the end of 2021. So now there are rumors that this is going to be a Rebecca Chambers game. According to Aesthetic Gamer, aka Dusk Golem, who is known for having inside information on the Resident Evil franchise, according to their information, Resident Evil Outrage, which will potentially be retitled Resident Evil Revelations 3, may feature Rebecca Chambers in the starring role. Evidently, the game will likely be released for the Nintendo Switch as a timed exclusive, but will eventually make its way to other platforms as well.
Yeah, it makes sense if it's in the Revelations franchise. Those, I think, launched on the 3DS when those first came out.
Yeah.
So they're tied to Nintendo systems quite intimately. But man, I feel like Capcom can't catch a break. It's like I'm waiting for some Mega Man news to drop at some point.
You know,
that X9 news, waiting for like that Dino Crisis reboot to pop up at some point. But Rebecca was a fun character in Resident Evil Zero. Not the best game in the franchise, but she's nice in her own right, lovable, charming.
I haven't heard any rumors out of this Capcom leak that didn't get me excited at least a little bit. Like, this can't be...
Power Stone was enough to get me like...
Like, I feel like this isn't necessarily a bad thing for them, you know? Like,
oh, no, it's not,
as an investor, I would be like, oh, this is good. Like, no, it sucks that your security is garbage, but what's great is that you have all these games that people actually care about in the works.
Right.
I will buy more shares, sir. And then they will say thank you.
Oh, Lordy. Yeah, but it's also the source is that guy that lied about Silent Hill, so there's also that part of it which gets me upset.
Yeah, like, but that doesn't mean... That still doesn't mean Silent Hill's not happening, Andy. I'm just saying.
Segue. We mentioned last week on the show, I think it was last week on the show, the creator of Silent Hill and Gravity Rush has left Japan Studios to make his own little studio. And he announced today what the new project will be. Due out in 2023. It is going to be a horror-themed action-adventure game. Yes. That sounds amazing. Give it to me. Please don't get canceled. And apparently, it will appease fans of his previous work. So I'm thinking, you know, Silent Hill, Siren elements in this.
Siren Hill.
Siren Hill.
We did it. We figured your shit out. You can't get us. You can't fool us.
Like,
oh! Oh no, I just hit the wrong thing.
It's like is a little racist twang in there, Steven? Because like if you're pronouncing it as someone of Asian descent.
Negative. No. Siren Hill. I was just saying.
Siren Hill?
No, that's not what I said. Don't put
that's when it came off.
Don't put racism in my mouth.
Don't put racism in my mouth.
You said Silent Hill and Siren, so I said Siren Hill. It was a combination of the past projects.
My garbage brain went.
I know where your garbage brain goes.
Really bad place. Even the dog agrees I was an asshole. Because it did sound like racism, Buzz Killington. Yeah, give it to me. Give it to me fast and nasty. I want it now. I gotta wait 3 years, but okay, whatever. I'll wait that long. If it's good, decent.
Hell yeah.
And people still think that this is in some way Silent Hill, and you are right, Cujo. They are wrong and dumb. This is not Silent Hill. Yes, I'm excited about this. Give me more horror, new IPs from seasoned veterans. Yeah, I am so here for this.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see. We shall see. That's all the news.
That's the news.
Like.
That's the news we want to talk about. That's what we got.
Hype Zone is. I can't believe this is the Hype Zone this week. Oh my God, Steven, the butt of every Kickstarter failed campaign joke, Unsung Story. Is that what it's called? Unsung Story?
Unsung Story, yeah.
It got released quietly on Steam to a massive 8 user reviews, which half of them say, stop saying that this involves the maker of Tactics and Vagrant Story. He left the project years ago. This is false advertising.
Nice.
Now, the game is currently in early access. It's, it has... Listen. This was a game that went through so much shit. It lost so much money. And in the 11th hour, some other company came in and tried to salvage the project. And to see it actually here functioning, I can actually play it and download it for $30. That's kind of hefty, but whatever. That deserves some measure of applause. That someone came in, they cared enough to finish this, or even basically start it, because nothing was done essentially when it was canceled. But it's here. It's 6 years later, but it's here, for better or worse. And it looks okay. I'm not gonna buy it, but it looks okay.
Yeah, it looks fine.
Yeah.
It looks like something that was, eventually just put out just to get it out.
Listen, it's just it's sad when you have like you bank this project on Final Fantasy Tactics, Yasumi Matsuno's work, Vagrant Story. That was the top billing.
That was the selling point. Yeah,
like over $1 million, and then it all went to shit really fast, and it became like a cautionary tale for Kickstarter. Like, yeah, it sounds good. Like, this was even worse than Mighty Number 9. That's how bad this project was.
This is it reminds me of like when they'll say like Tim Burton producer, but he didn't.
Oh yeah,
like a Tim Burton production, but he didn't direct it or write it.
When they say shit like from the producers of The Exorcist and Jaws, like, well, yeah,
okay.
Same guys are paying for it, but they're not making the movie. They're not the visionary behind it.
See, I would like to find the stinkers in those guys' careers and be like, from the makers of Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. Like, no.
Oh no! Listen, you take any actor and like Matthew McConaughey from such noteworthy roles like Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation, or Renee Zellweger in Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. Like, everyone's got shit on their resume.
Indeed. All right, let's get into the Facebook question of the week. Yes, we don't have anything in the mailbag right now, so we'll kick it to chat if you guys have anything you want to say. But the question of the week was, with Christmas just right around the corner. I mean, it's in 2 days. What is your fondest Christmas/holiday season video game memory?
Oh my God.
So we had a couple answers here, and the Moonwalker one The reason why I even came up with that is because my sister-in-law actually wrote that she got Moonwalker for Sega one time.
Wow.
My condolences, I think.
Wow, yeah. Sure.
Very,
very sorry about that.
Guy Michaels said getting Home Alone for Sega on Christmas 1992, or WCW versus the World on PS1 for Christmas 97. Then he told me to return his phone calls, in which I have literally 0 missed phone calls from. I checked. I scrolled all the way down.
Sounds like
there was nothing.
Fake,
and one of our friends, Zach, not Buzz, a different Zach, he says it got an N64 and a PlayStation 1 on the same Christmas.
Wow, what do you play first in that scenario?
And then he said having divorced parents isn't all that.
Oh.
So there you go.
Doesn't sound that bad. I mean,
it sounds like you figured something out there, bud.
A little saving grace in that, but
you got something.
I can interject I have 2 very fond memories. One is getting my first Nintendo as a kid, and then the other was on Christmas, and the other was getting my brother bought us a PS1 with some games, and you just knew what it was under the tree by the shape of the box, and
sure.
Oh my god, it was. We played everything we can get our hands on. Demo discs for Crash Bandicoot. I think we just played Mortal Kombat Mythologies for quite a bit of time when we first got that thing, but it was great.
Yeah, I think the only video game system I ever got for Christmas was PlayStation 1. And that's like the only I have great memories of that, but I don't really remember the year because I got NHL Face-Off 97, but I don't remember if those games came out in 96 with like the following year's number. I feel like it might have, but I don't really know. I only got 2 games with I say only, but I got 2 games with it. I got NHL Face-Off 97 and I got Soviet Strike. Those are the 2 games I got for it at launch.
Yeah.
And then later, I think a week later, I got Croc or something like that from like another family member.
Another great platformer.
So those were like the games I started with, and then later on I got like Twisted Metal and Tekken and like all that stuff. But I want to say one of the fondest memories I have is Christmas 92, because my brother opened Super Nintendo. And I remember seeing the Super Nintendo because we were playing, we didn't have Genesis. We were playing Nintendo. We had 2 Nintendos, 2 consoles because I think one broke and then it started working again or whatever. So we just wound up keeping it. But yeah, getting the Super Nintendo with Zelda and Street Fighter and of course Mario, which came with it. Those were the games we got for it. And I just remember being kind of blown away by that. And him kicking my ass in Street Fighter over and over again. Because in 92, I was 6 years old. I just turned 6. So, like, you know, what do I know? But I have very vivid memories of it because we had a VHS of that Christmas. And I used to watch it over and over and over again. I used to watch it all the time. I thought those videos were so funny. Adorable. And I used to play with, you know, wrestlers and action figures a lot. And I just have like this picture when my brother wouldn't let me play Street Fighter because he was going through the game on like hard or whatever, or level 8, whatever difficulty, whatever the hell it was. I was sitting there playing with my action figures, watching him and like mimicking the fights. I just remember that Christmas pretty vividly. I think that was also the year that I got, for no reason whatsoever, Star Trek: The Next Generation toys, which I've never watched a single episode of that as a 6-year-old. So I don't really know where those came from.
I wouldn't peg you as a Trekkie. So
I think that was the same. So my dad used to do this thing where he would look under the tree on Christmas Eve.
Sure.
And not be satisfied. And then go to Toys R Us by himself. And just buy shit. Like one year he got me a bike. He was like, I want to get him a bike. So he put a bike on the porch. And like there was another time he got like a stereo. Like he's like all out of options. He was like, everything's closed or there's no good stuff. So he just got like a stereo from Nobody Beats the Wiz or some shit.
Nobody beats the Wiz.
And I did the same thing last year. So now my wife learned, and we put money away all year just for Christmas shopping.
Right.
So
smart parents.
We figured that out.
You know, I have a memory that's not really quite fond. It doesn't involve games, but I remember one year, you could tell your parents were strapped for cash when you got a pair of sweatpants as a Christmas gift.
Sure.
And it was like a knockoff Pinocchio. It wasn't Disney. It was a Pinocchio cartoon VHS.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like the ghetto version of it. And I was just like, oh God, can we afford to eat tomorrow if we get into sweatpants?
And how old were you for this one?
I was in the 6th grade, Steven.
Wow.
At least 12 years old. And my gift was sweatpants and a Pinocchio knockoff tape. From like those little discount bins.
Sure. No, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Those like home comfort kind of places.
Oh yeah. No, I get it. Yeah. No, I get it.
ABC deals. Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of place.
My parents just, they made poor financial decisions and they put everything on credit. Like you know what I mean? And they were just like, well, I guess we'll pay for this next year. Like that was just kind of how they were.
Too proud for debt. They just rather.
No. They went to debt. They went straight to debt. They were just like, charge it. Nah. All right, let's go to the chat. Buzz does have something to say. He wants to know, how is the KF console not the hype zone?
I mean, it's too big for the hype zone.
You know why it's not in the hype zone?
Some things transcend even the hype zone, and that's
two reasons. One, when it was announced, it was a hype zone. And two, they still don't have a way to buy it. They said what it is, but I want to know when I could click buy it now. I want to know when we can shift our Patreon money to get our hands on a KF console with a built-in chicken warmer.
That's going to be the purchase of the century, I feel. That's what our life's work is building towards, Steven, on this podcast.
KFC, I want to know if you're listening, and if you're not, you should be listening. You should be watching and listening to the show. But what I want to know right now from you is, will you send us one of those?
Yeah.
Because we think you should.
Yes. We are avid lovers of chicken.
I do, Andy.
We are fans of, was it 11 herbs and spices or 7 herbs? It's 11, right?
11. It's 11, yeah.
11?
Yeah. And you know what, KFC? I had Popeyes last a week ago or whatever, and it was raw.
Regrettable.
It was raw. They gave me a raw chicken tendy, chicken strip.
No good.
It had. I knew it too. Just when I picked it up, I was like, "This is rubbery," so I cut it, and I was like, "This isn't cooked." What are you doing? What are you doing, Popeyes? Popeyes, get your shit together, bro.
There's no Popeyes console.
I put it in my air fryer though, and I ate it.
There's no Popeye station.
No, there's no Popeye station.
Yeah.
There's no Popeye station. That's going to do it for us, folks.
I'll do it.
Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for watching. If you want to follow us on Twitter, we are at dual_screens. If you want to go on Instagram, at NDS Podcast. I'm at Batchild27 on both. Andy is at Pantsky. And if you want to follow Taylor, he is at It's Perjure. Join our Facebook group, facebook.com/group/DS Podcasts. And again, if you want to support us on Patreon, it's patreon.com/NDS Podcast. Thank you to all of our contributors. Thank you, Bradley Parsons, for our theme song. He's from Sound Train Studio. We love it. So thank you, Matt Murray, for our Adventures in Gaming t-shirt. Not this overlay. I bastardized his overlay to fit just you and I when we had to do the show just you and I. So
it looks okay.
It looks fine.
It's getting the job done.
It's barely getting the job done, but
it's like Cyberpunk. It's functional to a point.
Yeah. Don't forget, if you're watching on YouTube, give us a sub. If you're watching on Twitch later or whatever you find it, or you want to follow us on Twitch, twitch.tv/dualscreenstreams. Hit the follow button. Andy, is there anything you want to tell the kids before we go?
Yeah, happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
All of that, open gifts, drink eggnog, eat ham, whatever your traditions are.
Be safe.
Be safe.
Don't kill grandma.
Don't kill the grandma.
Don't kill grandma.
Play a lot of video games and have a good time. And the year's almost over. The nightmare.
We almost did it.
Is almost done.
We're almost there.
You survived. You made it.
We did it. Thank you guys. And as always, please be excellent to each other.